There are a lot of people today who can't even talk to relatives and longtime friends because their political views are so different that it's turned them into virtual enemies. What's going on in this country?
93% of Americans hate how divided we become as a country. We have to find a solution to it, but we first have to diagnose the problem, which is your question, and I believe the problem is a culture of contempt. It's holding people who simply disagree with our political views as if they were completely worthless, turning them into enemies where they shouldn't be enemies, where they should simply be people who disagree with us.
You know, I used to love having conversations with people who were my polar opposite, and I found it very engaging. I got traction from that. Now, if I try to have a conversation with someone who really disagrees with me, they really disagree with me, and they want to scream and yell and call names, and it's utterly unproductive. How do we fix that?
Those of us that do a lot of television, the tendency is for somebody who knows your point of view, conservatives like you and me, to take all the things, anxieties that they don't like, let's say, about President Trump and say, well, you represent everything at this point. So you're going to be getting it worse than most. But a lot of people are going to be hearing that as well. You know, they say, hey, you're a conservative, so you got to represent all conservatives. The way to fight that is basically by showing love where other people show hate. It's, you know, my new book is called Love Your Enemies. And, you know, it's funny, I was giving a talk about it at a university. I've been talking about it constantly the last couple of months. And a kid comes up to me and says, that's a great title. How'd you think of that? Well, that's actually Matthew 5:44. You know?
It's got a little precedent.
It's like, we need a better education system in this country. A little bit. I didn't make that up, yeah. But the whole point of Jesus' teaching is that when people persecute you, that's your opportunity to show grace. That's your opportunity to show warm-heartedness and love. And what I show in this book is, I'm no theologian, I'm not a preacher like you, Mike, but I do know the social science behind this and the brain science behind this. And what happens is when somebody treats you with hatred and you respond with love, you have a chance of being persuasive, probably for the first time in years. You will be happier. I've got the proof. When somebody treats you with hate and you respond with love, you'll actually have the endorphins coursing through your brain. You'll be a happier person. You might make the other person happier, and you will be a force for American unity. You will be the beginning of a social movement starting in your heart. In other words, win, win, win. Win, no lose. You have no reason ever to answer hate with hate unless you're simply a slave to your own feelings.
There is a chapter in your book, it's called How Can I Love My Enemies When They Are Immoral? I love this chapter. And you mentioned that there are 5 innate moral values that most people share. I'm just going to quickly mention fairness, care for others, respect for authority, loyalty to one's group, and purity or sanctity. I thought that was very insightful. Those are things that whether a person is liberal, conservative, wherever they are on the political spectrum, you say those things are pretty common to everybody. Why is that important?
The two things, well, it's important because actually the two moral dimensions that everybody, liberal and conservative, share in common are fairness and compassion. The other 3, which is respect for authority, for loyalty to group and purity, those are things that conservatives have a lot more of than liberals. The problem is that we focus on those. So liberals say, you guys are a bunch of Puritans, you're Taliban. And conservatives will say to liberals, well, you guys don't care about those things, so you're a bunch of reprobates. Well, the point is, what we got to focus on are the things that we have in common, which is fairness and compassion to people who are weaker than we are. Now, it doesn't mean we define fairness and compassion in the same way, but if we actually respect the fact that we all care about those things, we can actually find not agreement, because agreement is not the goal in America. We need a competition of ideas, but we can come to some respect for the moral leanings of other people, and that's the basis of maybe a little common ground.
I lament the loss of humor within our culture. It used to be that late-night comedians made fun of both Republicans and Democrats, and frankly, both Democrats and Republicans laughed because it was funny. Today, a lot of the comedy is mean. It's not even comedy. It's political advocacy. You know, is there any fix for that? Any way to try to persuade the people in the entertainment business to entertain us and quit lecturing us?
Yeah, that's actually one part of the problem. In my view, the bigger problem is that everybody's got this culture of being offended all the time. You go on college campuses, and we shouldn't make stupid or offensive or sexist or racist jokes, obviously. I mean, that's just being a good person. But anything that you talk about, I mean, everybody's so quick to take offense. I think one of the key things that we need to do is laugh at ourselves a little bit more. I tell the story in the book. I was driving into New York City up the New Jersey Turnpike, and before I went into the Lincoln Tunnel, about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a billboard. It was right before Christmas, beginning of December, and it had a picture of the 3 wise men with a star, and I think, oh yeah, that's great. And then I read the billboard, and it said, it's a myth. This year, celebrate reason. And it turns out the billboard had been placed there by the American atheists. And you know what happened? I just started laughing. And the reason I started laughing is because, look, nothing's going to turn me away from my Christian faith. That's not going to shake it. I'm not going to say, oh, that's true, I'm a moron. It's kind of clever and funny in its way. The point is, there's no reason for me to get offended. There's no reason for me to start hating my atheist friends or to start questioning my faith. We got to lighten up in America today, don't we?
I think we do. Your book is a wonderful reminder of that and a great prescription for people to kind of take a step back and look at it. I hope people will read the book. It's called Love Your Enemies, a prescription for our toxic culture, and boy, is it ever. So you can find the book online along with Dr. Brooks' newsletter, podcast, and more. It's at arthurbrooks.com.